Welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics. We are delighted to have a very special guest. I want to jump right into the show. Dr. Moon Choi, the head of the president of the University of Missouri System. Welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics.
Thank you very much.
You know, there's been times where it's been seemingly appropriate, Missouri Times, this show, to criticize some of the thoughts, some of the things at Mizzou. You inherited what I think most consider to be one of the toughest jobs in academics, and it looks like you're making some pretty stable changes, one at a time, to turn some things around. And I wanted to ask you first, you've outlined a bit of a vision for the university.
That's right.
Can you share with our viewers the high points of that?
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me on the show. You mentioned that this may be the hardest job in academia, but I think it's one of the best jobs in academia, for an opportunity for us to work closely with all of our stakeholders, especially Missouri citizens, to improve our educational opportunities for students, provide opportunities for our faculty members to pursue breakthrough research that makes an impact in the marketplace or to society. And that last component of a land-grant university, to engage with the citizens, whether it's farmers in Cape Girardeau or school teachers in St. Louis, we have a great opportunity to make an impact directly.
You know, one of the things that has been talked about is Missouri's membership in the AAU.
That's right.
You know, I think no matter whether you've criticized Mizzou in the past or even now, you can't have Missouri succeed to the level we want it to succeed without a successful University of Missouri system. They just don't, it doesn't happen without that. What are you doing now to preserve that membership, and is it something that can be preserved, and can Mizzou flourish in that organization?
Absolutely, we can. But we really have to make a concerted effort to make it a priority to pursue the activities that are important for AAU metrics. And first and foremost, it's federal research grants. And federal research grants are provided on a competitive basis to outstanding faculty members. And unfortunately, during the past 5 years, Mizzou has lost many faculty members, approximately 10% of the tenure track faculty. So what we have to do is regain that focus and make that investment in hiring the best faculty members who are going to pursue research that have breakthrough and that have impact in society. It may be a faculty member who's working on bioinformatics to take genomics data that lead to personalized medicine. Or maybe a faculty member that inspires students through the work of Shakespeare, using literature and the humanities. And no matter what we do, as part of that exercise to pursue creative works and research, we also need to focus on the metrics that are important for AAU.
So let me ask you, you know a little bit about research. You do research yourself.
That's right.
Some of it federal research.
That's right.
Let me talk about your other personal narrative, though. Where do you come from?
I was born in South Korea, and we immigrated as a family when I was 9 years old with my parents and my 3 younger sisters to Akron, Ohio in 1973. And we stayed there for about 2 years. My parents had positions in Korea that were not transferable to the U.S. So they decided that they were going to make karate uniforms and sell it to my father's friends who were in the taekwondo and karate business. And that business grew while it was in Akron, and they decided to move to Chicago for a bigger market. And it has flourished ever since.
So there's a story I've heard from some folks at Mizzou.
Yes.
When you were younger, your family struggled when they first moved here.
Oh, yes,
and you would have qualified for free lunches.
That's right.
But your father wouldn't accept them.
No, he didn't. He didn't. And he was very proud of the fact that he himself, with the work of my mother, can feed a family. And he also mentioned that we also can't be a burden to this country. This country brought us in and gave us an opportunity, and the opportunity for my parents to have a better life for the children, especially educational opportunities. And he didn't want to take advantage of that. And so he wanted to make sure, because at that point, he had not contributed to the tax system, he has not contributed to Social Security, and for him to be able to draw on federal resources for free lunches, he thought was not the appropriate thing to do.
So when I asked where you came to Mizzou from, you actually came from a school that did, and you did research under a NASA grant, correct?
That's right. That's
Tell me
right.
about the school you came from.
So the last university that I worked with was University of Connecticut, and I served as Dean of Engineering for about 5 years and served as Provost. But during my academic career, which began in graduate studies in 1987, I worked with NASA on some of their fuels projects, especially looking at microgravity processes zero gravity, so that we can better understand how fuels create soot, how fuels can be made to burn more efficiently, and also reduce the pollutants that are released into the environment.
So, it's an interesting thing in the news recently. Charlottesville's been
That's
been
right.
brought up. Charlottesville is a university town as well.
Wonderful university.
We've never seen anything like what they experienced. However,
Yes.
the protests, I mean, part of a college experience can be protesting. Is Mizzou prepared to handle a large-scale protest like we've seen in other parts of the country?
I think we are in a good position to be able to address some of the issues that were faced by University of Virginia. But as we learn from media reports, it is also very clear that all of the planning that they didn't come to fruition because plans were changed by the protesters. I believe very strongly that a university must embrace diversity of experience, backgrounds, and perspectives. That's key. But I'm also very concerned about the safety of our students and our faculty members. So appropriate measures will be taken to address that balance between free speech, free expression, but also creating an inclusive environment where people are made to feel safe.
And you think you can pass those balance tests at Mizzou now?
Yes, we can. And we are committed, not only with the administrators' belief in this, in that principle, but strong beliefs with faculty support. In 2016, the faculty members at Mizzou passed a resolution for statement of free expression that's based on the Chicago Statement. So we believe in this very strongly. In a few weeks, we're going to be releasing a statement, similar statement that encompasses all four campuses and the system.
Well, I mean, some of the issues you inherited could be inflamed by past issues. Now, I know you've got rid of both faculty members that were kind of at the heart of some pretty aggressive behavior towards students previously.
That's right.
But is that part of the process of moving forward, is moving some of those folks out? One did before you, one did when you came?
That's right. And I think you're talking about Melissa Click.
Yeah.
And I believe that
And now Janet Basler's gone.
now Janet Basler is gone. And that was a planned layoff in Janet Basler's case. And I believe that we really have to look into the future to say, how do we address situations, as I said, balancing that free expression, but also at the same time, being able to keep a campus to operate in a safe mode for the benefit of our students and our faculty members. So that balance is going to be key. And that's why it's not a digital or a 0-and-1 situation that we're facing. It's nuanced.
Speaking of that balance, I think, it ends with the curators, right? Those are folks
That's right.
that the legislature approves, the elected governor
That's
nominates.
right.
You have a Marcy Graham, you have a David Steelman. Now you have a Jeff Lehman, you have a Jamie Farmer, added to Mr. Sunvold. I mean, I think it looks like you have a different board that looks a little bit more active. Tell me about the relationship you have with them and where they are as opposed to being active to other boards you've worked with.
It's a very active board, and I appreciate that. They're all very deeply committed to the mission that we have. And the mission of the university is to pursue student success, research and creative works, and engagement, especially with the citizens of Missouri. And in that regard, they want to do whatever is possible so that we can actually achieve those objectives. And also achieve those objectives with the goal of providing access and affordability when it comes to student education. So they ask me a lot of questions. They hold me accountable, but they do it in a fashion that I believe reinforces their commitment to the University of Missouri.
Speaking of the legislature, before you came, they made a couple adjustments. They brought in one of the top statesmen in the state to be a lobbyist for the college. Obviously, there was work to kind of punish Mizzou that did not come. And part of that, I think, when Senator Rowden kind of went and put himself on the line.
That's right.
Can you sit with an Andy Blunt and a Caleb Rowden and look a legislator in the eye from, say, Southeast Missouri?
That's right.
And tell them that a tax dollar raised in this state is well invested in the University of Missouri system today?
That's my commitment. I believe very strongly in the value of a land-grant university, the value that we provide to students who come from various backgrounds. We have 20% of our students who attend University of Missouri system who come from families that are Pell Grant recipients. Sure. And based on that, we need to make sure that we have every possible opportunity that we provide to the students for that student to graduate on time, have gainful employment, and in cases in which they incur federal debt, that they were able to pay that debt back. Currently, University of Missouri at Columbia has about a 4% loan default rate. And that is the second lowest in the state after Truman State. The loan default rate in the state of Missouri for public colleges and university ranges from 3% to over 20%.
Wow.
And so our students are gainfully employed, and they also pay back the loans that they have through the productive work that they do.
I truly want to wish you the best of luck in your work. I thank you for joining us on This Week in Missouri Politics.
Thank you very much. I look forward to coming back.
Yes, sir. We'll have you back anytime. We'll be right back with our opinion maker panel. Gregg Keller, dressed to kill. Doesn't surprise anyone that watches the show.
I've been in this industry for over 25 years, with the majority of that time here in St. Louis. At Republic Services, this is the community we serve. That's why we built a clean fleet of 130 compressed natural gas trucks. It is also why we recruit the best people and invest millions of dollars in the St. Louis area to continually upgrade our facilities. We value our community and take great pride in keeping the environment clean. Republic Services, we'll handle it from here.
My name is Eric Philippi. I'm a veteran, a carpenter, and a father. When Eric Greitens said he was going to change politics as usual, folks like me didn't think the first thing he'd do as governor was take dead aim at our jobs and our families' livelihoods by working to repeal prevailing wage. Call Governor Greitens. Tell him to protect prevailing wage and to protect my family, not destroy it.
All across Missouri, our new car and truck dealers are building strong local economies. When you buy a car or truck in Missouri, you're helping to support over 20,000 Missouri families who rely on the auto industry for good-paying local jobs. You're also helping fund our communities, schools, first responders, and our roads, because dealers generate millions of dollars in tax revenue. Missouri's automobile dealers have been the foundation of our communities for generations and for generations to come. The Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, the heart of Missouri.
Nobody likes power outages, including us. That's why Ameren, Missouri is investing in new equipment and smarter technology to reduce outages and keep pace with future needs. And it's working. We're in the top 25% in the nation for reliability. And on average, our rates are 18% lower than other Midwestern states. Making sure the power is there when you need it. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Welcome back to This Week in Missouri Politics. On the opinion maker panel, friend of the show, David Barklage. Welcome back, sir.
You're welcome.
Very appropriately dressed. I love it. Speaking of appropriately dressed, yes, he had to bring his A game because Gregg Keller's back on the show. Welcome back, Gregg.
Thank you.
John Gaskin, a Democrat rising star. Welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics again.
Thanks for having me, as always, Scott.
And for the first time, people are going to think we planned this, but we did not know this when you agreed to come on. Chris Schappe, the chief legal counsel for the Senate Democrats in Jefferson City. Welcome to the show.
It's good to be here, Scott.
And what a week for you to be here. Let's start with the top thing in the news. Senator chappelle-nadal posted on a Facebook page that she hoped for the president's assassination. You know, it is one of those things where folks that pay attention to Jeff City, that might not be the most top 10 things bombastic that she said, but she wrote this one down. The Senate Democrats have been pretty quick to condemn her and won a lot of praise for it.
Yes, they did. The condemnations came fast and furious. As a lawyer, I never like to use the word always or never, but if you're a public figure and you're posting on social media, never, 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 never call for the assassination of a president. You know, she's been a passionate advocate for the folks in the 14th District on issues like education and hazardous waste and racial justice. I think she's going to need to look into her heart and soul and do an examination of whether she thinks she can still be an effective advocate for those folks.
John Gaskin, I mean, effective advocate, yes, but said a lot of bombastic things, a lot of things that are past reason and logic. And then this was just put on a national stage and went poorly. Now, she says she's not resigning, puts a lot of folks in the Democratic Party in an awkward position.
Sure. You know, being someone in the civil rights community, one of the things that we've advocated for as the NAACP is building unity. A lot of times there may be things in your mind, you may not always love your enemy, but you can't always say those things.
Sure.
Furthermore, your words matter. They can't be taken back. And what you say on social media, especially as someone that is looked up to in the civil rights community, such as Senator chappelle-nadal, could potentially stir people to action. And I think she needs to resign. I congratulate and thank leaders within the party and across the aisle for calling on that because it was hard.
Lacey Clay.
And I think that they really need to show their leadership to be sure that that does happen, because anyone with those kinds of thoughts and that has that lack of judgment has no business serving in the state legislature.
Greg Keller, I mean, honestly, in Jeff City, Republicans call, they like when she takes the floor. She usually takes the debate. I mean, she is, to her credit, she does a good job holding the floor. But a lot of the things she says are things Republicans like to attach onto and attach to other Democrats.
I think the Senate Democrats in Missouri are now in a very awkward position because the ball is now squarely in their court. And it's one thing for Claire McCaskill to come out and say that Maria chappelle-nadal should step down. Pretty easy to do that from Washington, D.C., the United States Senate.
Is it easy?
But yes. I think this was a very positive development for Claire McCaskill's campaign, actually.
I see that. I can see what you're saying.
But the ball is now in the court of Missouri Senate Democrats. Is the leadership of that group of individuals going to specifically call on her to step down, or just say that what she said was out of bounds?
David Barklage, one of the reasons why Chris Schappe's in the minority general counsel, so the majority is the work you did. You know the Senate well. Does this put the ball, Ron Richard and Mike Kehoe, when Mike Kehoe comes out and says you should resign, easily the most respected man in government today, when Senator Kehoe says that, man, do they actually move forward and expel her?
I don't think so. I think the Senate is sort of a model of civility still in Missouri, unlike the United States Senate, which has sort of fallen into partisan division. So I think there is a process in the Senate where, out of respect and everything else, members try to get together and find solutions. I think we're wrong, though, to rush so quickly to the extent that we're establishing a trend here. And that trend is words do matter, but so do actions. And we are defining people's careers on one tweet or one camera snip. All of us are guilty of making a joke that might be inappropriate privately or whatever, but we're in a society that everything becomes public quickly. And I think giving the press the kind of power that every time a politician makes a mistake off camera or something else, that it ends their career, is giving a press who picks and chooses what they want to and how they weight reporting. It gives them an awful amount of power over people who do good. If you take Maria Chappelle or anybody who has done a lot of acts and you have people lesser than her calling for her ouster because of one comment, I think that's a perversion of politics and it's not where we want to go. So it's not really just about her. I think we have to take a pause to look at, is this the way we want to operate in an era where cameras are so accessible, where social media is there? I mean, all of us that are in politics, I mean, it is, especially when you're passionate, to accidentally say something that came out because of our passion or sincerity or just off color, it's too easy. And to end people's career, we're not going to have anybody left.
David, I think it's not accurate, though, to say this is one bombastic statement.
No, not
she
her.
has a long track record.
Attacking the press in this case is not defending her, nor would it be Donald Trump. I don't want to defend Donald Trump's comments, but the press is creating using the technology today to go out and to get you politics whenever they can.
I don't disagree with that, but Greg Keller, when KMOX's Mark Reardon broke this story, everyone in politics assumed it was likely true because they knew her. She said, I mean, honestly, they almost took, at one time, 30 million of your tax dollars and lit them on fire on some junk science thing. I mean, it got down to the House had to stop it. Or you'd have a guy swinging a hammer today whose money's going to have this senator that advocates hoping the president's assassinated with some scientific theory. I mean, it's real.
Senator chappelle-nadal has always been a very forceful advocate. I think anyone who knows her personality well, however, and I think many of us probably do know her personality fairly well, she has dug in her heels and said that she's not going to resign. And again, I think that puts her party in a very awkward position because she's not going to go willingly.
John Gaskin, does it put folks in the civil rights community? I know you're very active in the NAACP community.
Absolutely, every step of the way. My phone has been blown up from CNN all day long. The reality is, when we as advocates are trying to continue to talk about peaceful action, bringing people together, obviously talking about President Trump's comments regarding Charlottesville and those terrible groups that were involved with that on the other side, it puts us in a very compromising position.
Does the NAACP formally step out?
Well, I will say this. I think there are very much so some conversations today, not just with the NAACP, but with other African-American leaders across the breadth and width of our state regarding what this means. Because we look at very very prime African-American leaders that served in the Senate, like Maida Coleman, Senator Curls, Senator Banks, and Senator Carter, who would have never dreamed of saying something like that. You know, when you're an African-American in the state Senate, you represent so many African-Americans that don't have a voice, who have never even been to Jeff City. And so I think we have some very real conversations to have today.
Quick prediction, does the Senate remove Senator Chappelle-Nadal?
I really don't know. I know Senator Walsh was the first one to come out, the first statement I saw to come out condemning her, her statements. I really can't predict that.
Quick prediction, does she stay?
If the leadership makes her leave, I think she could leave.
Does she stay?
I think she stays.
She stays? I think she stays too. Let's talk about somebody that stepped out of the U.S. Senate race. Eric Schmidt was looked at as a top contender for that seat. In stepping aside, he paved the way. Talked about Josh Hawley, what a good candidate he is. He's not an announced candidate yet. But what does Senator Schmidt leaving the race mean?
In an era when it seems like politicians and elected officials are always looking out for number one, Eric Schmidt had a great week this week by doing what was right for the party, what was right for the conservative movement, and what was best for Missouri Republicans as a whole. Not only that, does he look like a great guy, because he is a great guy, but he also, I've been talking to a lot of high-ranking Republicans in Washington, D.C. this week. He wowed those people out in D.C. when he met with them. He left those rooms, and he had blown their doors off.
I mean, Missouri shows well when Eric Schmidt's speaking as a representative of Missouri.
Absolutely. Look, Eric, this is his second time. You know, he's sort of the, Peter Kinder was the guy to do this often before, and now Eric Schmidt is sort of taking that mantle, and I agree with Gregg. It's almost like the dinosaurs, they're extinct, to finding politicians that are willing to put aside their aspirations. He stepped out, no one should forget, of the AG's race and then stepped in the Treasury race, giving us a candidate that really couldn't be beat. So this is his second time, and he's building those chits up and establishing the kind of politician that we hope represent our party.
Sign of relief when Eric Schmidt steps aside. Guy with name ID in St. Louis can reach across the aisle. Great personal story.
Sure, I believe it is a sign of relief, actually. I have a great deal of respect for Treasurer Schmidt. He was a strong advocate in the Senate. In addition to that, he worked with the NAACP and other African-American leaders on a number of different issues. And he's someone that we rely on a number of different issues when we're trying to advocate for things. Senator McCaskill, make no mistake, is a major fighter, and I think she'll be okay. But this is certainly a sigh of relief for our side of the aisle.
You know Eric Schmidt well. You worked with him in the state Senate.
I do.
I tend to think, putting him on the ballot, all things considered 2018, Schmidt has the ability to reach over and convince some Democrats to vote for him.
I don't disagree.
Not without his large name ID where Democrats get a lot of their votes in St. Louis County.
That's true. He's been a very effective advocate for St. Louis County. He's also a great softball and basketball player.
He's tall.
But yeah, he is the kind of guy that can reach across the aisle and get some votes, and I think Claire needs to be very happy he's not there.
Scott, one thing I'd say is that Claire is a good fighter like the Germans at Stalingrad. And I think that's what sort of Claire is facing. Yep.
I mean, it's all. If that was October, I'd be offended by that. Gregg Keller, the University of Missouri. To me, Dr. Choi came into one of the toughest jobs in any of academia, and between the market forcing some cuts and some things he's doing, I think it's a time to start looking at maybe a turnaround happening at the University of Missouri.
Yeah, he certainly has his work cut out for him because of what's been going on the campus. Freshman enrollment down 25% in one single year. Sadly, it's emblematic, and Mizzou has really been on the tip of the spear of kind of this fascistic, leftist campus
I don't know what that word means.
environment.
I don't think it was a compliment, though.
And sadly, we see that on college campuses after college campuses after college campuses. Fascist-style leftists taking over our college campuses. We saw most recently at Evergreen State in Washington State. Unfortunately, this is an area in which Mizzou has been a leader.
David Barklage, I mean, to me, yes, there's been problems. The Missouri Times, I was sort of proud of one of the first media outlets to start calling out the problems, much to the condemnation of the establishment. But I think he's trying his best with what he has to work with to turn that ship around. And I mean, honestly, it kind of starts with academics. If they have a great basketball season, won't that do a lot for this college? And maybe it shouldn't, but it will.
Well, I hope it does. I think, I would say it starts with academics, but I think it more importantly starts with academia. And I see it a little differently. I think there is a new sheriff in town, and it is not necessarily a new assistant president. I think it's David Stillman. And I think the University of Missouri, it's sort of a two-part. It's having the right management place and having the right board of curators. And I think one of the biggest problems is that you've had the inmates running the institution. They fundamentally, I think, professors by nature are anarchist or anti-establishment. They don't want accountability. They want absolute freedom. They want to follow their own agendas. And so I think that David Stillman is the right person at the right time. He cares about the university. He has been amassing a majority of curators to actually be able to manage it. And he's got the talent and acumen and intelligence to really marry university politics to state politics to all those issues. I think if anybody can turn the institution around, him and the new appointment are the 1-2 punch that gives us our best chance.
I mean, I think David Stillman was, a long time, was a voice in the wilderness.
Appointee.
Nixon appointee, David Stillman, former Nixon opponent. But
Nixon did some good. We'll agree
there
with
you
that.
go. You had Marcy Graham. You have Jamie Farmer, Jeff Lehman. You're putting together a group of people that are more active, and I think you can tell the difference in the college already.
Yeah. The University of Missouri, it needs to be a place where a kid who wants to be a campus activist can go. It also needs to be a place where a kid who just wants to study, get his degree, and go to work can also go. And I think for a lot of families, the events over the last few years made them worried that, have made them worried that this is not a place where my kid can go if he doesn't want to be a campus activist. I think on the other side, you have minority families who are worried about if they can send their kid there safely. So the new president, he has a double-barreled approach that he needs to take on, and I am confident he's up to the task.
John Gaskin, I'm especially interested in your thoughts, because a lot of the changes brought on by the African-American students there. They actually affected change the legislature didn't have the temerity to do. Other folks, the market ended up doing it, but it was African-American students that really started the change movement. Where do you think Mizzou's headed now?
Sure. I think there were a lot of deep-rooted issues there that had never been addressed at the University of Missouri. There's a very deep history of disparities there. I think many people in ranks and very prestigious alum recognize that and are working to address those issues. But speaking of safety, I think all people in the community have an obligation to see that our state flagship university does well. And the NAACP's travel advisory certainly does them a disservice with enrollment from the freshman class being down 25%. When we have people calling our organization asking, is it safe to send African-American students from Chicago to the University of Missouri? I'm going to have a very long conversation with David Stillman this week, as well as the new president when I leave out of here. But we have a lot of work to do.
Can we amen you?
Oh, well.
I don't see why we can. I mean,
Thank you.
But Chris Schappe, with a minute left, who won the week?
I'm going to go a little offbeat. The Elias Catholic High School Crusaders of Jefferson City are having their grand opening of their new stadium tonight. They've had to play football in Jeff City, or in the Jeff City Jays Stadium for 50 years, and tonight they have their first true on-campus home game.
To Elias, who won the week?
Steve Stenger and State Senator Gina Walsh.
Very good. Who won the week?
Eric Schmidt, next generation conservative here in Missouri, who has a tremendous future ahead of him.
Maybe Jamie Schmidt won the week. Ever husband overall. Who won the week?
I think Elijah Har, the caucus buzz is that Elijah has amassed the votes to lock in his election as speaker. So I call for Elijah.
I will say Congressman Clay. Very quick to step out. Very quick. He's one of the president's most fierce critics, but when you go too far, he was quick to call us Senator chappelle-nadal. And we hope you'll win the week next week by watching us here on This Week in Missouri Politics. This Week in Missouri Politics, brought to you by Spire and Sterling Bank.